Hey everybody, it's Jake Mace, the vegan athlete. I'm doing gardening chores in the rain today. I love doing chores in the rain. And I'm going to show you guys in this video how to make the perfect compost at home. This is actually part 2. And part 1, if you guys look at the link on the screen right now and click here, part 1 showed you how I empty the compost from my tumblers and how I use it in the garden. So if you want to see that video, click here. If you want to see how I prepare and build the best at-home compost, this is the video for you right now. I have my materials right here in front of me, and it looks kind of like a bunch of trash, and it is. Compost is a dirty business, and as long as you want to get dirty with me, we're gonna have a lot of success. Let's get dirty with it. All right. So I got a combination of different things here, and pretty much the couple of things you want to worry about with compost is you want to worry about browns and greens. And any kind of browns are the carbon source, and the greens are the nitrogens. And so carbons are things like pine needles, wood chips, leaves, yard clippings, things like that. And greens are things like grass and the food scraps from your kitchen, from your diet. And you want to combine approximately a 50-50 mix of these edible greens, we call them the nitrogens, and the yard clipping browns, called the carbons. 50-50 mix. But I have noticed in recent days that I have more success building compost when I use about 60 or 70% browns. So I would err on the side of more browns and less greens. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We have this half of the tumbler empty and this half of the tumbler full. So I'm gonna show you guys how to fill this half. And notice how, if you guys look inside there, it's empty, but there's probably about half a shovel full of compost still inside there. And this is important because you want to start with a little bit of compost. So if you guys go get some compost from the store or have a friend with some compost, get like 1 shovelful of compost and throw a shovelful of compost into your compost pile or into your compost tumbler before you get started, because that will help to bring a lot of beneficial bacteria and microbes into your compost and will like inoculate it and jumpstart your compost success. Now this recipe can be done any way you want. You can build a pile and have a big pile of compost. You can cover it with a tarp, you can leave it open, you can do it in a tumbler like I'm doing it. I've done all the above. But I found that these tumblers from the Joraform company are the easiest, quickest, best, and cleanest way to do compost. When I had the big pile, I used to have a compost pile built out of pallets, and then I cut one of the pallets in half and put a hinge on it, and I had a pallet door. And I had to get in there once in a while, and I would have to flip it with a pitchfork, and it had so many holes in it that the air really got to it too much, and it didn't really get as hot and as wet as I wanted it to. These tumblers are much better, but I've also bought a bunch of tumblers, and most of my tumblers, once I filled them up to full, they've fallen apart on me. It's almost like the companies designed great tumblers but didn't expect people to actually fill them up with heavy compost. The Joraform, this one's a Joraform 270, has been the only compost tumbler so far that has cooked the compost well and held together on me when I've had it completely full. I learned a lot about compost being out in nature when I'm hiking. And so when you go out in nature and you hike on like a 3-day hike or a week-long hike or even a day hike, the forest composts better than you ever can. And it does it with 100% veganic methods, meaning all plants, no manure. It puts leaves on the ground, it puts pine needles on the ground. Fallen trees are decomposing on the ground. The bark off other trees is on the ground, and it just layers these leaves, bark, trees, and needles over and over again until it's black, amazing soil. If you click on this video, I showed a video about a month ago where I showed you the forest floor and how it looked perfect with dark black, nutrient-dense soil. We want to create the same kind of effect in our compost. Sometimes when I hike more popular trails, they have composting toilets at different rest stops out in the forest. And they always tell you to put a scoop of the pine shavings in before you use the restroom. This should teach us that the carbon, which is the pine shavings, is brutally important to building good compost. So, from my friend Jason, who's a master craftsman, he's also a Moray warrior from New Zealand. Okay. He hooks me up with amazing wood shavings because he's a master craftsman from his wood shop. So I had these organic, really nice looking 100% wood shavings that break down very quickly into really nice compost. So what I do first is when I'm building it for the first time, I put about 1 shovelful of compost in there to start. And after that, I throw a bunch of these wood shavings in there until this guy's about 3/4 of the way full of wood shavings. 3/4. This is very important for guys to do. The reason why is because if you don't put the wood shavings in the compost tumbler, your wife is gonna hate your guts forever, because if you don't use this much wood shavings like this, your compost is gonna stink really bad, and it's gonna be slimy as all hell and be full of bugs, and your wife's gonna divorce you. You're gonna lose your marriage over your compost. It will happen, okay? I learned really quickly that my wife Pam was far more accepting of our compost system when it stopped smelling, when it was easier to use, cleaner, and when it wasn't smelly and there was no flies all around, okay? And the key is these carbon source, leaves, wood chips, or pine shavings. So after the wood shavings, we gotta add some of the nitrogens. And this right here is from my kitchen. It's got orange peels and sweet pepper tops and some stems of some greens and such. So this is all good stuff to add in there. Some onions I see. Coffee filter with the coffee grounds in it, and apple core. Apple core, there we go. And I got this from IKEA for like $6, and it looks nice up on the counter. Once I add all that, I look at it and I go, that is definitely not enough nitrogens. Definitely not enough. So we gotta add some more nitrogens to this, and luckily, I've got 2 5-gallon buckets here full of juice pulp from a local organic juice bar that my friend Tony over at St. Vincent de Paul farm hooks me up with. So in this bucket is a bunch of apple pulp, and we're gonna add the apple pulp into here. And now it's empty. People ask me, Jake, how much water do you add to the compost? Normally I don't, because the fruit pulp, like the apple pulp that's in there now, is enough moisture that it'll be fine. What I do is when it's raining like a day like today, my one compost tumbler is outside, and I open the doors up and let the rain go in there. That's a good idea. After that, a third component I add to my compost is the azomite rock dust minerals. And you guys can get this from jakemace.com. That's gonna be some food for those microbes. I'm gonna add about a half a cup of the micronized azomite rock dust minerals. The fourth thing we're gonna add for this video is this in this bucket right here. My neighbor had a big fire the other day, and he asked me if I wanted all the ashes from the fire. I said, oh yeah. So this is a bunch of ash from my neighbor's fire. He had a cookout. This is all the ash that was left over from using his Dutch ovens. So we're gonna add that ash in there. A lot of good minerals inside there as well. It's always good to add your ash from your fireplace or from your fire pit outside into your compost or into your garden. And the fifth thing we're gonna add is this bag of paper shreddings. So my neighbor also consequently hooked me up with this, and this is a great carbon source as well. And in about a week, you won't even see one piece of shredding in there because it'll all break down. And that's it. We got about a 5-gallon bucket of apple pulp, 1 small bucket of kitchen scraps. We got some wood shavings, azomite rock dust minerals, some ash, and paper shreddings. We're making kind of like a stew of compost. Then we just roll it up. My friend John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com, he's got a great gardening channel here on YouTube. I've learned a lot about composting by watching his videos, and he often says that one of his workouts is rolling the compost tumbler. I do a little more than that. I do some push-ups in there too, and some pull-ups, and some hiking, but it is kind of a workout sometimes. And then the key is to let it set for a few days and let it begin to cook. But here's what it looks like now on the inside. Some of that dust from the ash and such, and the wood shavings has mixed with the apple pulp, has mixed with the ash, the azomite, and the paper shreddings, and we are well on our way to having a hot, steamy, nutrient-dense soil to put into our garden. If you guys want to see video number 1 of how I apply a finished compost to my garden and my trees, click on the video here right now. If you want to see the video I did about a year ago when I first got this compost tumbler, it's a video I did 5 days after I filled it for the first time. You can click here and watch that video and see how hot my compost gets after just 5 days of being inside here. You guys, if you want to be sustainable and you want to care about animals, the planet, and yourselves, you got to go vegan, adopt that vegan diet, vegan life, include those vegetables and fruits in your diet, as well as grow that food at home, because when you guys produce food at home using the rock dust minerals and the biodynamic active compost, like my Mace's Mix t-shirt says, you're gonna have food that's so nutritious that even if you were a billionaire, you couldn't buy because you didn't grow it yourself. So you guys can produce food that's the best on the planet if you grow it at home and if it's vegan. If you want one of my Mace's Mix gardening shirts, go to jakemace.com and be sure to follow me on Instagram at jakemacetaichi. If you guys have any questions for me, you can email me at the jakemace.com email system, and I'll see you guys back here, hopefully when it's not raining, for our next video.